Pro-democracy groups in Eswatini have condemned the murder of human rights lawyer and activist Thulani Maseko. He was shot in front of his home on Saturday evening, allegedly in the presence of his relatives. For more on this, let's speak to the United Eswatini Diaspora's Lioness Sibande. A very good evening to you, ma'am. Grateful for your time. Explain for people who aren't in Eswatini or familiar with the local politics why this murder has come as such a shock to people in Eswatini.
Good evening, Tembegile, and all the viewers at home. Thank you for having us. This has come to a shock to us as Swazis and everyone to the world at large, more especially because we know Comrade Thulani Maseko was an advocate for human rights. As women and all Swazis, we are honestly very disappointed, we're heartbroken, we are sad, we're mourning this loss, this great loss of our leader who, besides being a human rights lawyer, all we know that he was the chairperson of the multi-stakeholder forum in Swaziland.
I was reading earlier, and there's been an appeal, at least according to initial reports from the government, for people to not speculate or talk about, or at least insinuate that there may have been something more dodgy that's gone on, shall we say, behind this murder. Do you believe it was politically motivated?
Tembegile, on Sunday, we know that the king in Swaziland, they were wrapping up the Inkwala ceremony. And he made a speech whereby he threatened us as Swazis, as the political leaders and everyone who's fighting for democratic reforms. And he even confirmed, because we're speculating that there's foreign mercenaries in our country, but we were not sure, and we had done our research, and he confirmed that sadly, Comrade Thulani, being the person that he was, fighting for human rights, and he was a very calm and someone who was mostly advocating for a peaceful dialogue. He wasn't someone who was violent and supporting the violence that was happening in the country. He always advocated for a peaceful dialogue or peaceful means between the mass democratic movement and the monarchy.
And are you hopeful there'll be justice in this case?
We are hopeful, and besides being hopeful, we are going to fight for justice for Comrade Thulani by all means, and in every way. And I pray and hope that now the organizations that we have been calling for, like SADC and the African Union, have seen and realized how brutal this king has been, because this hasn't started on the Comrade Thulani. For the past few months, we have seen a lot of Swazis or political leaders that have been killed, or Swazis that have been killed since last year, since 2021 June. But they haven't been taking us seriously. We've been calling for sanctions on Swaziland. We appreciate, we've seen today a statement from the Botswana National Front and most of leaders and celebrities that were sending their condolences, and we just want to appreciate them. Going to the issue, what I mentioned, that we saw a statement from the Botswana National Front that is calling for Swaziland to be banned, or for sanctions towards Swaziland, or to be banned from the SADC organization. And we as Swazis were also calling for that, and were saying, can this country be banned from SADC or the African Union?
But do you think that will, Lioness, excuse me for jumping in, but do you think that would even happen when you consider SADC's approach to dealing especially with internal turmoil among the member states? Do you think they'll go as far as you're asking?
I believe we can always try. We can never say something will never happen. It's being hopeful and continuing to calling for SADC to please take action. We've seen them coming to Swaziland many times, but nothing has happened. And we honestly don't know what's the reason behind them not. By now, I believe Thembekile, the SADC would have sent peacekeeping forces to the ground, especially with all these people, besides the mass democratic movement, just to make sure that we are not losing more lives as Swazis.
And you say not losing more lives as Swazis. Do you fear that there may be a repeated trend, if indeed this was a politically motivated attack, that many other people, especially opposition activists, may be in the firing line?
Thembekile, we have a list of leaders that was leaked, which is it's called the hit list. So everyone doesn't know we live in fear, but that won't deter us or make us to now turn around and say we don't want democratic reforms in our country. We are still going to call for liberation, despite knowing that Mswati has a hit list and he's planning on killing, and you never know who's next. And for the past few months, or especially the past days, I believe every political leader or activist is not even sleeping. When you hear your gate making a noise, you panic. When you see a car parking outside your gates, you just panic. But we'll fight, we'll die fighting.
And it must be said, from our part as a responsible broadcaster, that we've not had any confirmation that it was perhaps the government of Eswatini involved in this, and we've reached out to them, or we're trying, at least as a channel, to get the Eswatini government on air to respond to some of what you've said, Lioness, and some of the other activists. But I want to go back to the murder of Mr. Maseko and what happened in Eswatini in the last 2 years, where there was basically a protest, a series of protests. Some of the protesters were killed in those demonstrations. Do you fear then that this murder case, if it's not solved, could lead to civil unrest soon?
Looking at the political situation right now, this has angered Swazis, and I believe things will get worse from what they were. But we are just hoping that SADC and all the organizations, and especially our neighboring countries, will come and rescue and try to mediate and to calm the situation before it gets out of hand. Thembekile and Swaziland were just a small country, population of 1.2. Looking at the number of Swazis that we have lost, it's no more a massacre. I don't know what to call it. Today, the finance minister Thembekile was bragging about the SACU funds, that between 2023 and 2024, there is an increase of that. And now, knowing that someone who's got money and we don't have money, we're just fighting with our spirit and all that we have. Someone who's, they've got each other's backs. So it's just a sad thing, but we'll continue fighting. The SACU funds that they're bragging about, we're just hoping and praying that they're not going to use it to hire more or hire more mercenaries or foreign mercenaries to come and kill our people.
Lioness Sibande, good to speak to you. Stay safe. Thank you for your time tonight.